Let's take a step back in time to a small, run-down schoolyard in a working-class neighborhood where the air smells of dust and the faint tang of metal from the old swing sets creaking in the wind. It's the early 1990s, and the bell has just rung for recess at Lincoln Elementary, a school where the kids are a mix of tough and scrappy, their clothes patched and faded from hand-me-downs. Among them is a skinny black boy, about 10 years old, named Marcus. He's sitting alone on a bench, his sneakers scuffed and his shirt too big for his small frame, a hand-me-down from an older cousin. Marcus is quiet, his head buried in a tattered library book about famous lawyers, his eyes wide with dreams of one day standing in a courtroom, fighting for justice. But to his classmates, he's just an easy target, a poor kid from the wrong side of town, someone to pick on to make themselves feel bigger. Leading the pack of bullies is a boy named Tommy, a stocky 11-year-old with a mean streak and a loud mouth. The kind of kid who always gets away with everything because his dad is a local businessman with money and influence. Tommy spots Marcus on the bench and smirks, nudging his friends as they saunter over, their laughter already cutting through the air like a blade. "Hey Marcus, what you reading?" Tommy sneers, snatching the book from Marcus's hands before he can react. Marcus jumps up, his voice small but firm. "Give it back, Tommy," he says, reaching for the book, but Tommy holds it high above his head, laughing as Marcus jumps helplessly. "What's this? You think you're going to be a lawyer?" Tommy mocks, flipping through the pages before tossing the book into a muddy puddle nearby. The other kids laugh, egging him on, and Tommy steps closer, shoving Marcus hard enough to make him stumble. "You're never going to be anything, Marcus," Tommy says, his voice dripping with cruelty. "You're just a poor little nobody. Why don't you go back to the dump where you belong?" The words hit Marcus like a punch, and you can see the hurt in his eyes, the way his fists clench at his sides, but he doesn't fight back. He's learned by now that fighting back only makes it worse. Instead, he kneels down to pick up his book, wiping the mud off the cover with his sleeve, his face burning with shame as the other kids keep laughing, pointing, and calling him names. One of them, a girl named Sarah, even throws a pebble at him, giggling when it hits his shoulder. Marcus doesn't cry. He's too proud for that, but you can tell he's holding back tears as he clutches the book to his chest and walks away, the sound of their laughter echoing in his ears. The bullying doesn't stop that day. It goes on for years, following Marcus through middle school and into high school. Tommy and his friends make his life a living nightmare, tripping him in the hallways, stealing his lunch, and spreading rumors that make the other kids shun him. They call him Trash Boy, a nickname that sticks like glue, and every time Marcus tries to stand up for himself, Tommy uses his size and his dad's influence to shut him down. One particularly cruel day in 8th grade, Tommy corners Marcus in the locker room after gym class, his friends blocking the door so no one can interfere. "You think you're better than us because you're always reading those stupid books?" Tommy sneers, shoving Marcus against the lockers. "You're nothing, Marcus. You'll always be nothing. You'll probably end up digging through garbage for a living." Marcus's eyes flash with anger, but he doesn't say anything. He's learned to keep his mouth shut, to bide his time. But as Tommy walks away, laughing with his friends, Marcus makes a silent promise to himself. One day, he'll prove them all wrong. One day, he'll show them what he's capable of. And fast forward 20 years, and the scene shifts to a bustling courthouse in the same city, where the air is thick with the weight of justice. Marcus is no longer the skinny, bullied kid from Lincoln Elementary. He's 30 years old now, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a sharp jawline and a quiet confidence that fills the room. He's wearing a tailored suit, his tie perfectly knotted, a briefcase in hand, as he strides through the courthouse halls, his eyes focused and determined. Marcus has worked tirelessly to get here. He put himself through college on scholarships and part-time jobs, graduated at the top of his law school class, and now he's one of the most respected lawyers in the city, known for taking on cases that fight for the underdog. But today he's facing a case that hits closer to home than any other. Across the courtroom, sitting at the defendant's table, is none other than Tommy, his childhood bully, now a 31-year-old businessman who's inherited his father's company, a construction firm that's been accused of fraud and negligence after a building collapse that injured dozens of workers. Tommy looks the same as he did back then, with the same smug smirk on his face, the same arrogance in his posture, but there's a flicker of unease in his eyes as he glances at Marcus, who's representing the victims of the collapse. The trial has been going on for weeks, and the tension in the courtroom is palpable. Tommy's lawyers, a team of high-priced attorneys hired by his father's connections, have been throwing every trick in the book to discredit the victims, painting them as greedy opportunists looking for a payout. But Marcus has been relentless, presenting evidence after evidence, shoddy construction records, ignored safety violations, and even a recorded conversation where Tommy admits to cutting corners to save money. The jury is hanging on Marcus's every word, his voice steady and commanding as he makes his case, his passion for justice shining through. But what Tommy doesn't know, what no one in the courtroom knows, is that Marcus isn't just fighting for the victims. He's fighting for himself, for the little boy who was humiliated and beaten down all those years ago, for the kid who swore he'd make Tommy pay for what he did. The turning point comes during the final day of the trial, when Marcus calls Tommy to the stand. Tommy struts up to the witness box, his confidence unshaken, clearly believing he can talk his way out of anything, just like he always has. But Marcus is ready for him. "Mr. Thompson," Marcus begins, his voice calm but cutting, "do you recognize me?" Tommy frowns, his smirk faltering as he looks at Marcus more closely. "No," he says, his tone dismissive. "Should I?" Marcus steps closer, his eyes locking onto Tommy's. "You should," he says, his voice steady. "Because I'm Marcus Johnson, the kid you bullied every day at Lincoln Elementary, the kid you called Trash Boy, the kid you said would never amount to anything." The courtroom falls silent, the jury leaning forward in their seats, the judge raising an eyebrow. Tommy's face goes pale, his mouth opening and closing as he struggles to find words. I don't remember that," he stammers, but the lie is obvious, and Marcus doesn't let him off the hook. "You don't remember?" Marcus says, his voice rising with controlled anger. "You don't remember pushing me into the mud, stealing my books, telling me I'd never be anything? You don't remember making my life a living hell for years?" He pauses, letting the words sink in, then turns to the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, this man has spent his entire life believing he's untouchable, that he can hurt people and get away with it. He did it to me when we were kids, and he's doing it now to the workers who trusted his company to keep them safe." But the jury deliberates for less than an hour before returning with their verdict, guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupts into murmurs as the judge sentences Tommy to pay millions in damages to the victims, along with a hefty fine for his company's negligence. Tommy's face is ashen as he's led out of the courtroom, his head bowed, his arrogance finally shattered. Marcus stands at the plaintiff's table, his expression calm but triumphant, the weight of years of pain lifting from his shoulders. The victims and their families rush to thank him, tears in their eyes as they shake his hand, calling him a hero. But for Marcus, this victory is about more than the case. It's about proving to himself and to Tommy that the poor boy who was bullied all those years ago has become a force to be reckoned with. The aftermath of the trial sends shockwaves through the city. Tommy's company files for bankruptcy under the weight of the fines and lawsuits that follow, and Tommy himself becomes a pariah, his name synonymous with greed and failure. He moves to a small town far away, taking a low-paying job at a hardware store. His dreams of wealth and power reduced to nothing. The story of his downfall is told and retold, a cautionary tale about the consequences of cruelty and arrogance. Sarah, the girl who threw a pebble at Marcus all those years ago, reaches out to him on social media, apologizing for her role in his childhood misery. Marcus reads her message, a small smile on his face, and responds with a simple, "Thank you, I've moved on." And he has. Marcus continues to build his career, taking on more cases for the underprivileged, earning a reputation as a lawyer who fights for those who can't fight for themselves. He's invited to speak at his old school, Lincoln Elementary, where he tells the students about his journey, encouraging them to never let anyone tell them they can't achieve their dreams. Years later, Marcus stands in his office, looking out at the city skyline as the sun sets, casting a warm glow over the buildings. On his desk is a framed photo of himself as a child, holding that muddy library book about lawyers, a reminder of where he started and how far he's come. He thinks about Tommy, about the trial, about the little boy who refused to give up despite the odds. He smiles, knowing he didn't just win a case, he won a battle for justice, for himself and for everyone who's ever been told they're not good enough. And as you reflect on his story, you can't help but wonder, what would the world look like if we all stood up to bullies, if we all fought for what's right, no matter how long it takes? Marcus showed us that justice may be delayed, but it can never be denied. So as you turn off this video, carry his lesson with you. Never let anyone dim your light, because one day you might just be the one to shine the brightest.